Welcome to Nobilis Erotica, episode 361, recorded live at the Comfort Zone in beautiful College Park, Maryland. And now here is your host, Nobilis Reed.
Thank you. Here we are. Thank you. Here we are, folks, live at the Comfort Zone in College Park, Maryland. In the past, when I've done live episodes, it's been at a science fiction convention, so it's great to branch out and try something new. I have to say, I feel a bit distracted with all these people and with this fascinating stuff on the shelves, books and games and sex toys. It's going to be a challenge, but I'll try to stay focused. While this isn't my first time doing a live event, this is my first time with something else, something I'm very excited to bring to everybody. I'm pleased to present our first ever musical guest, the Misbehavin Maidens.
Merrily, merrily, so merry are we. Let's do together what comes naturally. We've got lots of fun, positions to try, and don't be afraid to let your freak flag fly. Well, A is for anal, we'll start from behind, while B is for Benoit, my kegels to mind. C for clitoris, you mustn't neglect. D is for dildo to help you get wrecked. E is for eyesight, so fun to blindfold, while F is for flogger, now do as you're told. G is for the G-spot, not that hard to find, while H is for head, if you'd be so kind. Merrily, merrily, so merry are we. Let's do together what comes naturally. We've got lots of fun, positions to try, and don't be afraid to let your freak flag fly. Well, I is for intercourse, hope you don't lack. J's for the junk in the front or the back. K is for kinky, there's all kinds to choose. While L is for lube, which you always should use. Right. M is for masturbate, learn to self-please. N are for nipples to pinch and to squeeze. O is for orgasm, oh good lord. P is for the prostate, so often ignored. Merrily, merrily, so merry are we. Let's do together what comes naturally. We've got lots of fun, positions to try, and don't be afraid to let your freak flag fly. Q are for quickies, fun once in a while R is for rope tied in shibari style. S is for stroker to pleasure your cock, and T is for tentacle, oh what a shock. U are for undies in satin or lace. V for vibration, it isn't a race. But W for wand to use on your crotch, and X is the rating on the films that I watch. Merrily, merrily, so merry are we. Let's do together what comes naturally. We've got lots of fun, positions to try, and don't be afraid to let your freak flag fly. Well, Y is for yearning, your lover creates. Z for their zeal, your hunger it sates. Z's also for zipper, try not to get stuck. And now I have sung you some new ways to fuck. Merrily, merrily, so merry are we. Let's do together what comes naturally. We've got lots of fun, positions to try, and don't be afraid to let your freak flag fly.
Thank you, thank you. Can you introduce yourselves, please?
Yes, we're the Misbehavin Maidens. I'm Saber Thompson.
I'm Rouge O'Malley.
I'm Lucky Annie LeBlanc. I'm Flintlock.
And where can folks find you online?
www.misbehavinmaidens.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, we've got it. So
We're also on Pandora and Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes,
Bandcamp, yeah.
Apple Music.
Awesome. So pretty much anywhere anyone wants to find you. Thank you so much for that song. Of course, our purpose here today and for this episode is to celebrate the release of my novel, Monster Whisperer, available right now from your favorite ebook retailers. We will also have print copies here at Comfort Zone as soon as they're available. Print copies take a little longer than ebooks, but keep your eye on the Comfort Zone Twitter feed for when those arrive. Next up, we have an excerpt from my novel. This is from Chapter 2, after our heroine, Dale Clearwater, has decided, against her better judgment, to go on a mission with her ex, Vince, a monster hunter famous across the galaxy for his daring exploits. Together they have boarded an interstellar cruise liner that's been evacuated because of an attack by one of the more dangerous tentacle monsters of all, a phase looper, capable of shifting in and out of our dimension. On board the ship, they have discovered Penny Angstrom, Vince's old protege, and saved her from the phase looper's clutches. Along the way, all three have found themselves stripped naked by tentacle monster attacks, but they still have their most important pieces of equipment, the reality anchors that will help them trap the phase looper. We join them as they decide how they're going to capture this dangerous creature.
Dale took a deep breath and lowered her voice, using a quieter tone to calm down the conversation. First, the phase looper was acting strangely, at least for tentacle monsters in general. The damage to the ship, for example. It looks severe, but we still have power, and heat, and air. It clearly has the ability to wreck the whole ship, but it didn't. It smashed the hell out of the control room, said Penny. Well, you said it had taken control of the doors, Dale observed. How did it do that? Penny shook her head. I don't know. I didn't see it. Well, we don't know a lot about phase loopers. It's possible it has some way to interface directly with the computers. If it didn't know exactly what it was doing, that wouldn't have been a gentle process. Vince squinted and looked back in the direction of the control room. That should take a bit more sophistication than you'd find in a tentacle monster. I don't know it happened. It just did, said Penny. It makes sense to me, said Dale. Tentacle monsters are a lot more intelligent than we often give them credit for, which brings me to my second observation. For all of its fury, it could have done a lot worse. It could have snapped your neck or suffocated you, but it didn't. Vince shrugged and shook his head. That doesn't tell us much. It tells us it wants something from us. One thing that's true of tentacle monsters across the galaxy is that they gain energy from human emotions. Most of them feed off of a form of sexual ecstasy, usually found only in certain kinds of submissives, but there are also other variations like under-the-bed monsters and their preference for scaring innocents. Vince rolled his eyes. We're all experts here, Dale. In that case, you noticed as I did that the phase looper, with all three of us available for its attentions, went after the sexual dominant among us rather than the submissive. What? Vince looked from Dale to Penny and back again. What are you talking about? Trust a sub, said Dale. I know one when I see one. She nodded in Penny's direction. Didn't you hear the arousal in her voice as she watched the Critzoan have its way with me? Penny shrugged. Guilty as charged. I mean, it's even in my profile on Fetish Galaxy. Not exactly a secret. Fetish Galaxy? Finch shook his head. I don't want to hear this. Besides, all this psychic energy stuff is nonsense. Completely unscientific. No, she's right, said Penny. If only in terms of an as-if construct. It may not be an actual measurable force, but thinking about it as if it were makes it easier to understand. Thing is, though, that monster definitely wasn't acting submissive. Dale raised a finger. I think it was. I think it was being a brat. Acting out, trying to get you to punish it. It knew you were physically capable of giving it the kind of energy it wanted, but that was the only way it knew to tell you. Huh. The corner of Penny's mouth turned up. A submissive tentacle monster. I kind of like the sound of that. None of this changes anything, said Vince. I think it does, said Penny. I think it's pretty clear that my original plan makes all kinds of sense. With a functional reality anchor, I'll be able to draw the creature out, confine it, and make it my bitch, just like it wants. "Oh no, there is no way I'm letting you go into this alone," said Vince. "She won't be," said Dale. A shiver of anticipation ran down her spine. "You?" asked Vince, making a sour face. "You and her?" Dale glanced at Penny. "If it's all right with you." Penny blinked. Who? Me? Yeah, sure, that's fine. I'm going to be the example, show the creatures what, and how it all works. Wait. You two are going to have kinky sex in order to get the phase looper to attack? Vince shook his head. "This is bug nuts." "It makes perfect sense," said Penny. "It's the best way to draw it out." "I understand, Vince," said Dale. "You're upset because you don't like to think of Penny in a sexual way. You don't have to be part of this if you don't want to." Vince growled and tangled his fingers in his hair as if to yank it out by the roots. "You know I'm right," said Dale. Fine, he shouted, stomping over to where his reality anchor lay. "But I'm going to be keeping an eye on you. If anything goes wrong, I'm stepping in and stopping this." He sat cross-legged with his back to Penny and Dale, facing the holographic display. Penny scooped up her own reality anchor and looked around. The observation lounge was a fairly large room, elliptical in shape, with rows of comfortable chairs and small tables with tasteful abstract sculptures. She walked towards the other end of the room, and when she came to a shimmering outer barrier, she said, "All right, let us out, Vic." Without a word from the man, another barrier formed inside the first, and then the outer one popped out of existence. The two women hurried towards the far end of the room, and then Penny set her reality anchor down on a low table and knelt down in front of it. She powered it up quickly and erected a spherical barrier around both of them. "Safe word?" she asked. "Mandrake," said Dale. She shuddered and wrapped her arms around her belly. "Not that I usually need one." She gestured towards her camera bot, directing it to a spot where it would get a good view of the proceedings. "Good to have one anyway. So I imagine bondage is one of your things, right?" "Yeah, we don't really have anything we can use." Penny tapped the reality anchor. "Oh, yes, we do. I've been thinking about the possibilities ever since I got a hold of this. Believe me." Dale purred, her own imagination sparking. "Ah, yes then. Definitely bondage." "Pain?" "A bit," said Dale. "Not too much. Slaps, spanks, that kind of thing." "Humiliation?" "No, not my thing." Too bad. I want to try that someday." "Someday?" Dale cocked her head. "How many times have you done this?" An anguished growl came across from the room. I can't listen to this. I'm going to watch for the looper somewhere I can't hear you." Vince scooped up his reality anchor and stormed out. Dale and Penny shrugged to each other. On Penny's reality anchor display, the bubble representing the fields projected by Vince's unit slid out of one of the corridors and into one of the nearby states' room. "His loss," said Dale. "So you've done this before, right?" "Yes, of course." "You've been a dominant in a BDSM scene, I mean." "Well..." Dale's smile spread across her face. "You haven't." "I have." She put her fists on her hips. "Just not with a woman, or anyone older than me, or..." She looked up at the ceiling. "With someone like you," she said softly. "Like me?" Stars, this is embarrassing. Best to just say it. If we're going to be putting on a bondage show, it's best not to have this kind of secret. Penny closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then blurted out, "I had a crush on you when Vince and I were a couple." "Yeah, I was just 19, crazy about tentacle monsters, and here you were knowing everything there was to know about them, and I thought you were pretty and smart and daring, and I wanted to be you so bad, but you were with Vince, and okay, I'm going to shut up now." She shook her head, blushing. "And you don't have that crush now?" Yes, I do." Dale bent down, put her hand on Penny's shoulder, and whispered in her ear, "And now you get to do all the things you imagine doing." Penny moaned. Tell me what you want me to do." Penny took another deep breath, flexed her hands, and pointed to a spot across the table from her. "Stand there." Dale took the spot, standing at attention. "Raise your hands. Spread them out a bit. Wider than shoulder width apart." Dale lifted her arms over her head. When Penny clapped her hands on the reality anchor display, Dale felt a force field pop into existence at the level of her wrists. She looked up and saw the shimmering, semi-transparent energy field shrink down until it was no more than a rectangular bar with 2 holes exactly the right size for her wrists. It didn't feel like a physical object. It didn't have well-defined edges for one thing, and it went far enough up her wrists that she couldn't bend or lower or twist or lower her arms at all. It was simultaneously more immobilizing than it should have been and less constricting. There was no pressure, just an even force that perfectly matched any motion she tried to make. Penny giggled. "Oh, this is perfect. Spread your legs." Without protest, Dale widened her stance until her feet were as far to the sides as they would go. Penny clapped her hands, and shortly there was another force field holding her ankles in place, just as firmly as her hands. "Do you think he can feel it through the force fields?" Penny asked. "You mean the looper?" "I don't know. Maybe he can smell arousal. The force fields are gas permeable." Penny worked some more with the reality anchor, connecting the 2 bars she had created with vertical pillars, forming them into a single shape. Dale could see herself in miniature directly in front of her on the holographic display. "Oh, look," said Penny, pointing to the holographic display. "I think he's interested." On the very edge of the scanner's detection range, a few threads of red could be seen, tentatively moving about in hyperspace in the direction opposite the one Vince had sulked off into. "Let's see if this will draw him out." Penny rose to her feet and walked around the table to stand behind Dale. "Everything comfortable?" she asked. "Nothing binding or pinching?" "It's fine." "Good, because I wouldn't want to cause you any unintended pain." A sharp sound reached Dale's ears a moment before the sharp pain of a hard smack on the buttocks, followed by another and another in quick succession until Dale cried out, "Ow!" "It's too bad I don't have a gag for you," said Penny, delivering another swat. "And stop wiggling. If you gagged me, we'd need a different safe word. And you're hitting the same spot over and over." "Quiet. No insolence from the sub." Dale sighed. "Mandrake." Penny came back around into Dale's field of view with a disappointed look on her face. "It's okay," said Dale. "I just need to explain a few things." "You can tell I don't know what I'm doing, can't you?" "How will you know if nobody tells you?" "I think you should mix up the sensations more. Caresses in with the spankings. If I know what you're going to do next, I can prepare for it. Also, it's not just about causing pain, it's pain mixed with pleasure. So there needs to be some nice things in there too. Caresses and other kinds of touch." Dale felt a little funny giving a lecture like this when spread-eagled and naked, but she carried on anyway. "For me, the big turn-on is being helpless. A toy for you to do whatever nasty things you want to do to me." "So, you need me to do things." "Right, I'm okay with a lot of things, but some of them need to feel good too, you know?" "Gotcha. Look at it this way. Here I am, the object of your crush, on display for you. You can have your way with me. Don't you want to do anything else but hit me?" "Right. Okay. Anything else?" "That covers it for now. If I think of anything else, I'll safe word again, and we can talk about it some more." Penny nodded. "Can I start again?" "Yes, please do." "All right," she squinted a bit thoughtfully. "From now on, I don't want you to say anything. Not a word or a sound unless it's your safe word. Understood?" Dale couldn't help smiling. "Yes." "Ah, you couldn't even make it 5 seconds." Penny stepped to the side and gave Dale another swat, this time on her left cheek, and then followed it up with a gentle caress. "Let's try not to earn another one of those, eh?" This time Dale nodded. "Good. I'm sure you'll fail, but it's good of you to try." Penny put her arm around Dale's belly and pulled her close. Dale could feel Penny's warm body all along her back and relaxed into the embrace, suppressing a purr of contentment. "You were right," Penny purred, stroking her hand up and down Dale's stomach and ribs. "I have wanted to do this since I first met you." Her other arm joined the first, sliding down. I wished I was a monster so I could hold you all over. Dale bit her lip as Penny's fingertails brushed one nipple, bringing it to a tight peak. The other hand swept down over her shaved mons and stroked Dale's outer lips, making silence even more difficult. You're holding back, Penny whispered in her ear. Good. Then the caress on her breast turned into a deep squeeze, narrowing down into a sharp pinch, just as the fingers lower down slipped into the folds of Dale's sex. She couldn't hold back anymore, and she let out a soft moan. The hand between her legs delivered a sudden slap to her pubic mound, eliciting a gasp of surprise. The slaps to her bottom were painful, but that hurt more, and the surprise of it made it even more shocking. You were doing so well, whispered Penny, one hand still gripping the flesh of Dale's breast. And here you are, making more noise. The next slap came on Dale's flank, a hard, full-force smack. You're going to make my hands sore if you keep this up. Dale choked back another cry, holding as still as she could. Inside, waves of emotion coursed through her. She was falling into a bit of a familiar, receptive trance, but at the same time she felt a surge of pride that she had guided her young lover to this point. Perhaps she wasn't a complete innocent, but Dale had no doubt that this moment would be a significant one in Penny's sexual life. The slaps and spanks, the caresses and gropes, none of that had had half the effect of that one thought. Yes, she wanted to say, take me, you wonderful little Dom, but she held it in, let the thought permeate her mind as Penny's hands took possession of her body. But there was still something missing. This was nice, this was very nice, but Dale knew that there could be much more going on. Mandrake. Penny let out a disappointed groan. What's wrong? Nothing wrong precisely, said Dale, but I think you're not taking every advantage you could. Standing up, there's not a whole lot of ways for you to use your body, but you could be using your mouth, too. Ah, I see your point. She looked around. Maybe if we lay you down on one of these chairs? That would probably work better. In my experience, you bind someone standing up for a heavy pain workout. If you're going to do other things, it's better to be in other positions. I'll remember that. Thanks. Penny bent over the reality anchor to remove Dale's force field restrictions. Oh, look. Our phase looper has come out of hiding. Dale paused a moment to watch. He's interested. I think he can sense what's going on here. Penny looked up with a vivacious smile. Let's see if we can get him even more interested. Dale allowed herself to be led to one of the couches, where she lay back and placed her hands over her head, and her ankles at the lower corners of the cushion. This time Penny encased her wrists and ankles in immobile spheres of force that held her even more securely than ropes would have done. She was nearly immobile, able only to squirm against the soft fabric of the cushions beneath her. Everything comfortable? Penny asked. Yep, this is good. Penny bent over Dale's recumbent form and laid a gentle hand on her thigh. Ready to get started again? Let's go. Good. Okay. Same restriction as before. Don't make a sound except to say your safe word. Got it? Dale smiled and nodded enthusiastically. Penny walked casually along Dale's side. Oh, so you're being careful, are you? Dale nodded. All right, then let's try this. Penny knelt at Dale's side, laying one hand lightly on Dale's breast and placing a long line of kisses along the woman's collarbone. As she got closer to Dale's ear, her hand went from soft caresses to deep squeezes, forcing soft flesh between her spread fingers. You like that? She said. Dale nodded again, swallowing a moan of pleasure. Monsters were good for many things, but they couldn't really kiss. Penny could kiss. Her lips were soft, her tongue hard and ready, and she alternated licks and sucks, feather-light pecks, and the occasional fierce soul kiss on Dale's mouth. The whole time her hand was on Dale's breast, squeezing, pinching, and running her fingers lightly over the sensitive skin. It wasn't long before Dale couldn't hold it in any longer and let out a long, loud moan. Penny's hand came down in a vicious slap on the inside of Dale's thigh, bringing out a new squeal of pain. She tensed and squirmed as another slap came down, higher this time and in a more sensitive place. Quiet, Penny whispered, or you won't like what happens. The implication was clear. If she made too much noise, a slap was going to come down directly on her sex. And while she liked a bit of pain, that was probably more than she wanted. She closed her eyes, willing herself to silence. But that only heightened her focus on the sensations coursing through her body. The places Penny had spanked her still tingled, and the memory of her tender lips and cruel hand were too fresh to ignore. And then Penny's hand gently pushed Dale's knees apart, and she nearly cried out in anticipation. Surely she didn't expect Dale to stay quiet for that. But of course she didn't. That was the whole point. Somehow Dale managed to stay silent as the first kiss arrived on her outer lips. She discovered she could hold it back a bit better if she allowed herself to breathe freely, panting rather than moaning, and maintained her silence as Penny's tongue ran up the length of her slit. But her control dissolved when Penny gently pulled her lips apart and deftly explored Dale's sex with her tongue. She moaned long and loud until she was silenced by another slap on the inner thigh, dangerously close to her pussy. At this point, there was nothing she could do. Each touch brought forth another moan, each slap another squawk, and the strikes were getting closer and closer to the one that would really hurt. And the thought was driving her mad with anticipation and dread. Then Penny let out a squeal. "It's here!" Dale opened her eyes, shaking herself out of her erotic haze, and looked over at the reality anchor, where Penny touched its controls and stared up at the display hanging in midair. Threads of red light filtered through the air, passing through the walls and people there as if they didn't exist. And just on the edge of the globe of glowing lines, there was an amorphous smudge where all the threads came together. The threads moved frantically, waving about. "It's trying to reach in," said Dale, "trying to get into our dimension from hyperspace." "I know," said Penny. "I'm setting it up just a little closer." The young woman's lips spread in a feral, close-set smile that chilled Dale to the core. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Giving it what it needs," said Penny, "and giving it what it deserves." Penny worked quickly, forming a cylinder of force in the space over the table. Shimmering curves and planes came into being as Penny worked. "Come on, you know what I have for you," she breathed, barely above a whisper. And the creature responded. Dale couldn't tell if it could actually hear her or if it sensed her thoughts or what, but it responded, coiling its long, thready limbs and sliding into the cylinder. In the display, the threads changed from red to green, but the reality was far more interesting. Appearing as if from nothing, the cylindrical chamber, only about 1.5 meters in any dimension, filled up as if out of nowhere with thick, glowing loops, like a bundle of loosely gathered multicolored rubber bands rolling over and around each other, swelling to fill the space. They seemed quiet, but in Penny's display they pulsed with a faint red light. Penny slammed her hand down on the console, then clapped her hands and bounced. "I did it! It's caught! Dale, look!" She pointed, still bouncing. "The barrier to hyperspace is up. It can't get away, and I caught it."
And there you have it. That was an excerpt from Chapter 2 of Monster Whisperer, an ebook available right now from Amazon. Print copies coming very soon. Thank you, Saber, for a fine performance. That was awesome. Let's hear it for Saber. Now, before we go, I'd like to thank the Comfort Zone here in College Park, Maryland, for hosting this event. Thank you guys for letting us take over your space for the afternoon. You can find their Twitter account at ComfortZoneMD, on the web at ComfortZoneMD.com. They've also got a Facebook page, Comfort Zone MD. They've got sex toys and novelties, fetish gear, books, games. It's an incredible selection here at the Comfort Zone. Come and check them out. To take us out, we'll have another song by the Misbehavin Maidens, who you can find at misbehavinmaidens.com. Before that, I just need to remind you that the Nobilis Erotica podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution No Derivatives license. Until next time, listen hard.
Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We used to sail to the Shire, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to the Shire, we did, but we don't anymore.
A lad there wanted tobacco,
We had some of that on board.
Long bottom he wanted, my bottom he got.
That's why we don't sail there no more. Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We used to sail to Gallifrey, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to Gallifrey, we did, but we don't anymore.
A lady asked us for Time Lords.
We had some of those on board.
Time Lord she wanted, the Doctor we played.
That's why we don't sail there no more.
Moisturize me, Doctor.
Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We used to sail to Lannisport, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to Lannisport, we did, but we don't anymore.
Alas, there wanted a Lannister.
We had some of those on board.
Jamie she wanted, his hand she got.
That's why we don't sail there no more. Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We used to sail to Rilia, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to Rilia, we did, but we don't anymore.
Alas, there wanted an elder thing.
We had some of those on board.
Cthulhu she wanted, a deep one she got.
That's why we don't sail there no more.
Tentacles!
We used to sail to the Labyrinth, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to the Labyrinth, we did, but we don't anymore.
A king there wanted a goblin,
We had some of those on board.
a baby he needed, we tried all night.
That's why we don't sail there no more. Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We used to sail to Panem, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to Panem, we did, but we don't anymore.
A tribute asked us for sponsors.
We had some of those on board.
Odds he wanted.
My favor he got.
That's why we don't sail there no more.
I volunteer as tribute.
Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We used to sail to Hyrule, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to Hyrule, we did, but we don't anymore.
A princess wanted a relic.
We had some of those on board.
The Triforce she wanted, a threesome she got.
That's why we don't sail there no more. Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We used to sail to Asgard, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to Asgard, we did, but we don't anymore.
Alas, there wanted a demigod.
We had some of those on board.
Loki she wanted, Thor's hammer she got.
That's why we don't sail there no more.
Thor's hammer was his penis.
Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We used to sail to Hogwarts, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to Hogwarts, we did, but we don't anymore.
Alas, there wanted some magic.
We had some of that on board.
Spell she wanted, my wand she got.
That's why we don't sail there no more. Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We sailed to Mushroom Kingdom, that's where we put ashore.
We sailed to Mushroom Kingdom, we did, but we don't anymore.
A princess asked for some plumbers.
We had some of those on board.
Plumber she wanted, I warped her pipe.
That's why we don't sail there no more. Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya.
We used to sail with Starfleet before we put ashore.
We used to sail with Starfleet, we did, but we don't anymore.
Saber wanted an officer.
They had some of those on board.
The captain she wanted, his log she got.
That's why we don't sail there no more.
Set warp drive to maximum thrust.
We used to sail to Sunnydale, that's where we put ashore.
We used to sail to Sunnydale, we did, but we don't anymore.
A vampire wanted a slayer.
We had some of those on board.
Buffy he wanted, Mr. Pointy he got.
That's why we don't sail there no more.
Mr. Pointy was
Nya-nya-nya-nya-nya-nya. We used to sail with Nobilis, that's where we put ashore. We used to sail with Nobilis, we did, but we don't anymore. The fans there wanted some music, we had some of that on board.
But then Nobilis decided he wanted to put us in one of his books, and we weren't quite sure how we felt about that.
That's why we won't sail here no more.